Hello there, I'm Tom Wiggins.
And I'm Emily Elias, and this is Desert Island Dips, the podcast where we pit condiment against condiment and ask, if you were trapped on a desert island, which 5 dips would you bring with you?
So this week we're going to talk about ketchup, but I think before we get into that, we should define what a condiment is.
Yes.
Because some people think like guacamole is a condiment.
Some people at this podcast think that guacamole is a condiment.
Is it a condiment? Because does it adhere to these 4 rules that we've come up with?
I feel like...
I mean, we're not going to get into that now.
I feel like we need to save the guacamole
Yeah.
fiasco for the guacamole episode. Stay tuned.
But we've come up with four rules, four criteria.
Condiment criteria?
Condiment criteria.
Naturally.
They are, number 1, if you're eating and you have this condiment, it is optional, not required.
It enhances the food.
It
is not a
enhancer.
main ingredient
Exactly.
that in order to make the food what it is.
So because we're doing the ketchup episode, you could have some chips. You don't have to have ketchup with them if you don't want to.
But it enhances the flavor of the chips.
You're a fool if you don't. The next one is that you wouldn't eat a bowl of it on its own with a spoon, or any other implement, actually. It doesn't have to just be a spoon.
Any physical matter that isn't edible.
You're not just going to sit there with a bowl of it on its own, though. As in, it requires the other dish for it to be appetizing. Because ketchup is delicious, but you're not going to eat a whole bottle of it, are you?
What do we got next? Shall I do it?
Yeah, you do the next 2.
Do you get it free with a meal?
This is in a pub or somewhere, not just at home. I mean, you have to pay for it at home.
Well, I mean, if it comes in a small packet that McDonald's gives to you as a dipping sauce, or...
Let's not get into the whole 5p for your ketchup sachets system that some takeaways operate. That is a crime against condiments.
Should we have a special segment called Tom's Crime Against Condiment Corner?
I feel like we could set up a sort of campaign to eradicate the 5p charge on ketchups and other sauces that exist in some, I'm going to say, low-rent takeaways. But that's another episode, isn't it?
Don't mince words. As you can see here, we're just brainstorming
episode
after episode after episode.
What's number 4?
Can it be bought in a container in a shop? Whether that container is glass or plastic, a bottle or a jar. Can it be purchased in a shop?
I'll let you have other containers as well.
I think that you can kind of tell that our criteria for what a condiment is quite broad.
Yeah, but I think everything that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks does fit into those, does adhere to those rules, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So first episode, I think it's fairly obvious where we start. It's kind of the OG condiment, right? I
would say number 1 condiment with a bullet for me.
Yeah.
When you're thinking condiments, there's like a holy trinity. Ketchup, one of the members of the holy trinity.
Sometimes known as tomato ketchup. But when we get into the history, we'll see why that has become necessary to add that. Because should we go straight in?
Yeah, let's get right into it. I mean, you have dedicated a good part of your day today.
Minutes.
Multiple minutes.
And some minutes the other night as well.
2 days.
2 days worth.
Of your life.
2 days of work.
We're doing some serious research for this podcast about what makes ketchup. So where did this magical condiment start?
Let's start with the history. So I don't expect you to do this physically, but in your brain, can you transport yourself back to the 16th century?
Easy.
Right now. Do it now.
Done. I'm there.
Okay. Now, if you could zone in on Southeast Asia.
I am enhancing my brain to that.
Blade Runner style.
Yep.
Nice. And then if you could make some friends with some Chinese sailors.
We're already buds. We go way back, me and the Chinese sailors.
Find that very easy. They will introduce you to a sauce that they call, I'm not going to try and say it, I don't think with the correct accent.
Please do not do that.
Basically, it sounds like catsup, which doesn't sound very nice, does it?
No.
We'll call it ketchup instead, which is what happened because the British they had this sauce which originally was basically a fish sauce. I'm going to read out some of the first known recipe for this, which was from 544 AD. It says, take the intestine, stomach and bladder of the yellow fish, shark and mullet, wash them well, because who wants dirty fish guts in their catsup?
You gotta have quality control.
Exactly. Mix them with a moderate amount of salt and place them in a jar. Seal it tightly and incubate in the sun, which is obviously the best way to get stuff to taste good. It's just put it in a jar, leave it outside. In the summer, this will be ready.
If you don't die.
In the summer, it will be ready in 20 days. In the spring or the autumn, it takes 50 days. And in the winter, it's 100 days. And when you open it up, you get what I can only imagine was quite a disgusting fish sauce.
Yeah.
After a while, the guts that they were using, they changed them to anchovies.
Okay.
The British who had discovered this one that you were a member of the party of just a minute ago in your brain.
Yep.
They try and bring it back home with them because obviously it's so delicious. Although it doesn't sound like it.
Oh, good Lord.
And they start changing the recipes, sort of, putting their own spin on it. A fusion.
Right. So is ketchup the first bit of Asian fusion?
Easily. It would seem so.
Okay.
Yes. So they start changing some of the ingredients.
When do we get to the tomato part that I'm familiar with?
So this takes a while because then over the course of sort of the next 200 years, they mess around, try out some new things. They were pioneers. So they're using things like walnut ketchup, which still exists.
That sounds delicious.
And mushroom ketchup, which again also exists, but I've never had.
I've never had it either.
So at the end of this 200-year period, a guy in America decided to get tomatoes involved. Now, I didn't know this, but at this time, people thought tomatoes were poisonous.
I did know this.
Because they look like the deadly nightshade berries.
Yeah,
apparently.
And they couldn't tell which ones were which, and so nobody in England was eating tomatoes out of fear that they might poison themselves and die.
Aren't deadly nightshade berries really tiny?
I don't know. You could have a police lineup and one of them be a nightshade berry, and I would
and
not
another one's
be
a
able
tomato.
Yeah, I'd be like,
well, no wonder they had the problem then.
The nightshade berry definitely did it.
So, in order to convince people that tomatoes were not poisonous, this guy was like, "No, they're great. You can eat them." He ate an entire load of them in one go to prove it to everybody, which is a good way of doing that. The problem with using tomatoes at this point is that the tomato season is only 2 months long. So
for shame.
Yeah. So in order to have ketchup all year round, they had to put loads and loads of preservatives. Now, you know how everyone, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but manufacturers always go on about no artificial preservatives and flavours and stuff.
Yeah.
Based on what preservatives were like back then, I think they're making an unnecessary fuss. Because preservatives back then basically would have killed you. Like the really horrible things that they put in this stuff to keep it going.
Worse than fermenting it in the sun for 22 days?
I think so. The problem also was that storage of the tomatoes was not up to a particularly high standard, so a lot of the time it was like rotten tomatoes and stuff. Nobody wants rotten tomatoes, do they?
Except for the website Rotten Tomatoes.
They put in these horrible preservatives in because of the way that they treat the pulp. It actually comes out a bit yellow, which to a lot of that, that's not, you wouldn't want a yellow tomato ketchup, would you?
Well, if I didn't know any better at the time, I would be like,
yeah, but you'd have looked at
I would think it's just normal, and I'd be,
wouldn't you have looked at the red tomato and gone, why is the ketchup yellow? I'm not having that. Get me some red ketchup.
Well, clearly somebody did, because
Yes.
we have red ketchup.
And do you know what they used to colour ketchup back in those days?
Beetles.
No. Coal tar.
What?
Which is flammable. Apparently, so how you get a little flame thing to indicate that something's hot and spicy?
Yeah.
This was a very different kind of flame that they were using.
As humanity,
Yeah.
I am shocked that we managed to survive.
I know, it's mental, isn't it?
This is what we're doing to ourselves.
In not very high concentrations, this stuff is pretty much deadly. It's like carcinogenic, just real bad business. In actual fact, when Henry J. Heinz came along, he released his first bottle in 1876, but it still included the coal tar at this point. So he hasn't nailed it at first attempt. However, this guy sounds really cool, by the way.
Heinz?
Yeah, Henry J. Heinz and his company at the time was massively ahead of its time. Like, they had free life insurance, death insurance, doctor and dental services. There was a real focus on cleanliness in the company. And bear in mind that, the people that are working there at this time probably don't live in houses with running water or anything like that. So he is kind of really driving things forward. Cool guy, right?
Thank you, Mr. Heinz.
Mr. Heinz. About 20 years later, there's a guy works out how to do a preservative-free version of Heinz ketchup, and that is why the bottles are clear, because it was the whole idea of transparency, purity. If you can see inside the bottle and you can see that it's a nice red colour, as long as you can convince people there's no coal tar in there, they can go, oh, that looks nice, I'll buy a bottle of that. Which is an idea he got from, he made horseradish before this, and he'd put it in clear bottles as a way of going, look how delicious my horseradishes.
So Heinz figures out, hey, I'm going to put this lovely tomato, non-carcinogenic, I can't say the word.
Carcinogenic.
Thank you, sauce in this beautiful glass bottle, and people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
Did he have any competition, or is he the only one on the block?
Well, apparently, in 1896, apparently 90% of all ketchups on the market could kill you. So finding that like non-deadly ketchup was worth doing. You know, there was clearly, there was incentive to do it.
He found a gap in the market.
Non-deadly ketchup.
Non-lethal ketchup.
Exactly.
And exploited it to no end.
Well, I also enjoy a little fact that I missed out earlier on.
Go on.
The guy that was trying to convince everyone that tomatoes weren't deadly actually went so far as to say they could cure stuff. And he basically invented like a ketchup pill.
Wait, what? He
turned it into pill form because he was like, "Hey everyone, ketchup's actually really good for you.
Vitamin ketchup,
and it can cure all kinds of problems." Like he would suggest it was kind of a universal, you know, like how now you just go, paracetamol, that'll fix you. Back then, this geezer would have gone, "Have a ketchup pill, that'll sort you out."
That is amazing.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it? And sort of slightly sci-fi and space age. You know, like in the future where we're not going to have real food anymore, we're just going to have different pills.
Like Soylent or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I figured it out.
You can have
ketchup.
your Soylent and then you go, actually, I'll chuck a ketchup pill in there to make it taste a bit better. It might not happen like that, but it's got that sort of vibe to it, hasn't it?
Ketchup, you're blowing my mind.
I know. What?
You're more than just a red jolly condiment I steal from pubs.
Just you wait. Well, you shouldn't admit to those crimes in the first episode. 1906, so only 2 years after the preservative-free, the nice one, is invented, 5 million bottles being produced a year. So on the bottle of ketchup, I've just picked the one you stole from the pub last night up to see if it still says it. I don't think it does. Oh, yes, it does. Underneath tomato ketchup and above the lovely looking illustration of the tomato.
The non-lethal tomato.
Yeah. So you've got 57 varieties. Oh, and it's sort of, what do you call that? Embossed?
Yeah, it's kind of...
In the glass.
That's
the point. Another little fact for you. If you've got a glass bottle, which for me tastes better, in order to get it out of the bottle, because you know it's very stubborn, you have to tap on the 57. And there's a reason for that, which I will explain later on. Let's get back to the 57 and why is it there. That has never been an accurate number. Well, it has, but since it's been on there, that has never been accurate. They put it on because Mr. Heinz had seen an advert, I think it was, that said 21 varieties of the whatever thing it was advertising, and he thought, that sounds good. Like, that makes it sound like I've got loads of stuff to sell you. So he just decided his favourite number was 5, and he asked his wife to pick one, and her favourite number was 7, so he went 57 varieties. In actual fact, when they put that on there, they already had over 60 different products available. Not 50 different ketchups, but 60 different Heinz products. So it's always been a lie, yet it's still there.
I'm blown away by the Heinz family.
And I can't even really think. There's loads of different types of ketchup now, aren't there? Let's not get into that.
Well,
we can do it in a minute if you want.
I mean, there's so much ketchup saturation in the market.
Yeah, non-Heinz though.
Non-Heinz, not just non-Heinz, but like now, you know, if you go and look in the aisle, you've got like chili ketchup and like all sorts of.
There's one with balsamic vinegar in it. I think
that
I've not tried. Maybe I should have tried these before we decided to record a podcast about them.
Regrets. But there's tons of different like saturations of different varieties of ketchup within the ketchup brand.
The Heinz ketchup brand.
Any ketchup brand.
Yes, but you're always going back to that one, aren't you? Because you know now, and probably subconsciously you knew before, that it's not going to kill you.
I don't know if I know that, but also I'm not sure that I'm eating Heinz ketchup, that I know I'm eating Heinz ketchup. Like, you know when you go to a restaurant and they just have generic ketchup bottle on the table, like, how do I know that it is Heinz ketchup in that bottle?
I know. Have you heard the rumours?
What are the rumors?
That they just fill it up with some cash and carry nonsense that they buy on the cheap, and they keep Heinz bottles.
I believe that in this country, but when I used to work in a restaurant,
Yeah.
they used to have
Insider
knowledge.
Yeah.
They used to have this sort of like giant balloon bag that had a spout in it. And it would be...
That sounds disgusting.
It would be hanging on the wall.
Yeah. Did you hang it in the sunlight so it could create the ketchup for you as well?
No. It was hung like next to the washer and dryer where they would do the wash, like they would launder the napkins.
Like a blood bag.
Yeah, kind of. And then you'd have to go and like, to refill the ketchup, you'd take the ketchup bottles over and you'd unhook the spout. The ketchup would pour out of the bladder bag into the bottle, and then you'd screw it back up like an old-timey sort of like...
No, that's horrible.
Yeah, but the bags were labeled Heinz.
Oh.
So you knew it was a Heinz ketchup product.
Can I get one of those for my house?
Probably. You get like an IV and just like mainline ketchup.
Hang it up in the kitchen.
So I know it exists, but I'm not 100% on like London restaurants not ripping me off and finding a cheap tomato paste and honest, jamming it in.
Yeah, it probably varies.
Have you seen what rents are in this city?
Well, who can afford to buy proper ketchup if you're paying a high cost to rent out your restaurant?
Exactly.
Yeah. My favourite fact, maybe because I don't really understand it fully,
go on,
is that if you allow ketchup to flow freely, it travels at a speed of 147 feet per hour. I know. I don't really know how it's moving at all. Like, I assume they don't mean that if you just get a bottle of ketchup and put it on the floor, it moves at 147 feet per hour.
Not in its bottle form. But I think it means the flow of the liquid, the viscosity of the liquid. Yeah. If you were to pile up a bunch of ketchup.
So if you pour it...
And let gravity do its thing.
If we were to pour this out onto the floor now, we've got standard size glass bottle, 300ml.
Stolen from an undisclosed pub last night.
If you were to pour that out onto the floor now, and you were to measure the speed that it spread, it would be going at 147 feet per hour. That's what I assume that means. I mean, I did a bit more research into this.
Sure. I would be disappointed if you didn't.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend that I fully understand all of this. I mean, I got, I think, a B for science at school, and I haven't really followed it up. The University Challenge rounds that are science-based, I'm not normally that
It's a bit over your head, to be honest. It's over everybody's head.
But ketchup is what is known as a non-Newtonian fluid.
A non-Newtonian fluid.
Which I think they should put on the bottle.
Get rid of the 57 and go non-Newtonian fluid.
At least this is a fact, and 57 varieties
is factually accurate, Heinz.
A non-Newtonian fluid, as you can probably guess, is one that does not follow Newton's laws of viscosity.
Tom Wiggins is gonna teach you science.
I'm really gonna try.
Wicka crap. You're the hip teacher that gets it. You can relate it to the kids.
Not really. I've just got this off the internet, so I'm just going to read it out. Newton described how normal liquids or fluids behave, and he observed that they have a constant viscosity or flow. This means that their flow behaviour or viscosity only changes with the changes in temperature or pressure. So, for example, water. That's probably the OG liquid, right?
Yeah, if ketchup is the OG condiment, water would be the OG liquid.
Fair, right. And we're going to do a whole other set of podcasts about liquids in general. What makes a liquid? I think someone's done that already. If you were to... Let's go back to this bottle again.
Okay.
This glass bottle of ketchup, if that was full of water and you tipped it upside down, the water would just all flow out at a constant rate, right?
Whoosh.
Whereas if you do the same with the ketchup, that would not happen. And you can speed it up by hitting it. So... Are we all on board?
I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this groundbreaking revelation on where I need to be hitting my ketchup.
We've done that on the 57.
I thought there was a reason for it.
Yeah, because if you put it under stress, then it flows quicker.
And the 57 is the perfect stress point.
There are different types of, what's it called? Non-Newtonian fluids. This is where I start getting out of my depth. Ketchup is shear thinning, which means that viscosity decreases with increased stress. So the increased stress, for example, is hitting it on the 57. That means the viscosity decreases and it flows out quicker. If that was water, hitting the 57 wouldn't make any difference. It would just come out at the same speed. Are we still on board?
I'm on board.
Okay.
And please, podcast listeners, stay with us.
Stay
This
with
is our
us.
first episode. It would be
Yeah.
so sad if all of a sudden
Come
it
on.
dropped off as we were explaining science.
I think this is really fascinating.
No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you.
Right, because when you sieve out the ketchup and you get rid of the seeds and all that stuff, it actually becomes quite thin. So the reason it's like that is because they add xanthan gum. Basically, but that's the side effect, is that you get a non-Newtonian fluid as a result.
Because of the xanthan gum?
Yeah. Toothpaste, custard and blood, apparently also non-Newtonian.
Ew.
So ketchup is the blood of condiments.
Yes.
Is that the conclusion we're going to draw from that?
Blood. Ketchup.
Well, ketchup is the blood of the condiment world, and without it, all condiments would cease to live. Is that too much?
Maybe a bit too far.
Okay. What about well, I would say, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, there are two main, let's call them controversies or debates in the ketchup world. Number one, do you keep it in the fridge or do you keep it in the cupboard?
I agree.
Yeah. And probably, I think this is more niche. This is more for purists like me. The glass bottle or plastic bottle debate. Which one should we start with?
Shall I let you know where I stand?
On which? Both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fridge.
No.
Plastic.
No.
Yep.
Just wrong and wrong.
No.
How have you managed to get it so wrong?
I'm not.
Let's start with fridge versus cupboard debate.
Fine.
So, and I know, right, I'm already covering all bases here because I've asked Heinz.
Oh.
And I've also, I've also got the viewpoint of a food historian.
Yeah, well, you haven't asked my mother,
Right. Well, I didn't think about that, to be fair.
who has taught me over the years, fridge.
Right.
Always the fridge.
Based on?
Ketchup is, you don't want it to go bad.
No.
Keep it in the fridge. It creates a longer lasting life, longer shelf life.
Okay, well, you're kind of wrong and right. So
Mama Elias does not need to be wronged.
So let's go with this is Polly Russell. She's a food historian who was on BBC Two's Back in Time for Dinner, which I haven't seen.
I have.
Have you really?
Yeah, it's really good.
Is it on at the moment?
No, I don't think so, but it is worth a watch.
Okay. She has said that the reason, one of the reasons ketchup and things like Liam Perrins were an HP sauce. These were like really important in olden times because they would add flavour to food, but they didn't need to be refrigerated because people didn't have refrigerators back then. So you needed these kind of things. They were like important to have. What allows them to be kept at room temperature, fact, is that they've got quite high acidity levels, high salt and sugar content. I'm going to use a big word. Are you ready? Microbiologically, they are safe to keep at room temperature.
Okay, I didn't say
you're picking
safe.
out safe, right? Okay.
I didn't say whether it was safe or not to keep it room temperature. I said whether you should.
Right. She then continues to say that modern day food chilling can be bizarre and there is an increased anxiety over food safety, which leads people like you and your mum to chill foods when we do not need to. So that's the opinion of the third party. If you ask Heinz themselves, it's probably itself, technically.
Ask Heinz.
Ask Heinz. Is that a new podcast again? Ask Heinz.
Ask Heinz.
Found a guy called Heinz. Because of its natural acidity, Heinz ketchup they call it shelf stable, which is a nice little term. Maybe that should go into our condiment definition.
Shelf stability.
Its stability this is quoting directly from the Heinz website. Its stability after opening can be affected by storage conditions. So basically, if you look after it properly, it's fine. They recommend, and that's what you're going to latch onto, I know it already. We recommend that this product be refrigerated after opening. Refrigeration will maintain the best product quality.
Boom. Best product quality.
No, because the main problem is when you're getting it out of the fridge to put on your chips, you've got cold ketchup.
But your chips are scorching hot.
Yeah, it's fine.
And so if you put cold ketchup on them, you can eat them faster because it cools down the surface area of the chip as you're putting it into your body and you're not burning your mouth. I'm
not having it.
It's like it's a protective layer of cool.
I, as much as anyone else on the street, enjoy the fun, tingly sensation that you get by combining hot and cold. For example,
I, like anybody else on the street, love having my mouth burned.
No.
I love the sensation of mouth burn.
It's not about that. I'm talking about things like apple crumble with ice cream. The hot and the cold, it's a taste sensation, right? I don't want that when I'm having fish and chips. I think what we've learned from here, for me, that we live in a world where both approaches can coexist.
I agree that both approaches can coexist, but what I'm saying is...
No, one of them is not right and one of them is not wrong.
One of them is preferable
No.
than the other, and Heinz themselves did say, for a better quality of the product over a long period of time, it should
Didn't say better quality, it just says the best product quality.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It doesn't mean it will taste better, it just means it will be kept at its optimum.
Welcome to the semantics podcast, where we argue semantics.
Science to semantics in the space of a few minutes.
I think that you are wrong, but also...
It's fine, you're well within your rights to think that.
But also, can we get into...
You'll probably continue to do so for many, many episodes to come.
There's not much you can say to convince me otherwise, but can we get into the idea of glass or plastic? Because I'm a firm believer in the plastic bottle because I'm a modern woman.
Right, is it just for ease of access?
Yeah, I need my sauces on the
pathetic.
go.
Have some dedication to your taste.
I'm a modern woman who just sauces on the go. I don't have time to hit the 57 patiently out of my...
Get sachets. Because surely that's the most effective and convenient way to eat your ketchup.
Also, I'd make the argument for the sachet in the sense that it's probably fresher because there's no oxygen. It's like how canned tomatoes can be fresher than like the actual tomatoes you buy in the shop because they were taken out of the field and canned right away, as opposed to a store-bought tomato which has been shipped from Italy and it has been sitting on a shelf for weeks before you actually get it into your house.
You're trying to convince me that it's better to have tinned tomatoes than ones bought from the grocery area.
I'm just saying they're technically fresher. But I wouldn't prefer a packet. I must say, like I find ketchup packets incredibly frustrating.
Well, from what I'm getting from this is that you would prefer to eat tomatoes from a sachet than from picked fresh off the vine.
What I'm trying to say is that as I want convenience. This is a condiment. I want it to accompany something. I don't want it to be the main attraction. I don't want to be stuck there for 5 minutes trying to like carefully coax it out of its glassy home. I want it on my food.
But it's non-Newtonian. This is
where the problem lies.
It hasn't got a choice. It's not just being stubborn. I think that you need to slow your life down slightly and take those few extra moments that it takes to get ketchup out of a glass bottle to have a little think about your day. Not make all these sacrifices. Because that's what it sounds like to me. You're making a sacrifice because you're in a hurry to use a plastic bottle.
I honestly can't taste a difference. To me,
well, there we go. That's more important.
There's no taste difference between having it out of a glass bottle or having it out of a plastic bottle. And I would think that the Heinz company would have done multiple rounds of product testing to determine whether or not the container actually affected whether or not the condiment tastes different.
I believe it is against the law for...
Product testing?
No, for it to taste different depending on... You have to make the container sort of neutral.
Yeah, so it doesn't imbue any flavor onto the product.
Exactly. So I haven't...
So you're arguing against your own argument.
I'm telling you that I prefer to eat out of a glass bottle because I think, and I may well be making it up, I think it tastes better from a glass bottle than it does from a plastic.
But
there's more of a tang to it. It's probably a placebo effect.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Because if they are given strict regulations that it can't taste any different depending on what container it is held in, whether it be glass or plastic, we're not
almost certainly not going to taste any different.
Yeah, we are not into an argument over taste. We're into an argument over preference and ease of access.
Yeah.
And I would much prefer then to have a quick squirt of ketchup than a lazy flop.
The hand gesture that you're doing when you do this is really not...
It is an appropriate hand gesture for the context of the conversation.
I am completely I say completely, I'm not completely happy to accept. But I prefer eating my ketchup from a glass bottle, and I will continue to do so until you prize that glass bottle there from my cold dead hands.
Would you?
I am the NRA of ketchup.
Would you ever be in a situation where you would refuse ketchup from an establishment? Like,
No.
if you didn't know if it was Heinz, or if it came in the wrong container, is there any situation where you would be like, whoa?
If it came in a bucket or something. They just turned up with a bucket.
Like a slop bucket of ketchup at your table.
Just dropped it on the floor next to the table. There you go. That's the ketchup you asked for.
Coming soon to East London.
Places where they don't have plates. Yeah, but you get a bucket of ketchup. I don't like it when you get a little... What are those little glass ramekin?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Don't like that word either. When they give you one of those and you're having like a burger or something, and you kind of go, well, what am I supposed to do with this? I will normally just have to accept what I'm being presented with, you know. Like, what are you going to say if they say, if you want ketchup, and they say, well, we've only got it in a shoe and it's not Heinz, would you say no?
I'd
probably give it a go and then maybe not eat much of it.
I don't think I'm into eating shoe ketchup.
It's a clean shoe.
I still don't know.
It's a brand new shoe.
Even then.
I mean, it's not just the shoe it's a ketchup shoe. It's a specially designed shoe for the purpose. It's not just from like JD Sports. It's a...
I'm sorry. Could you have started this anecdote out with that qualification on the shoe?
I didn't think it was necessary, but then you got freaked out by the idea of a ketchup shoe.
I don't want to eat shoe condiments.
Well, that's where we differ, isn't it?
And yet, ketchup makes it on the desert island of dips.
Absolutely. Of course it does. Mainly because it's the first episode and it has to go on.
Okay, so one of the things we wanted to do with this podcast was we didn't want to just talk about dips and ketchups and sauces and condiments.
We are going to do that though, right?
Which we are 100% going to do. Okay. But we wanted to
Otherwise, I'm going home.
Listen, sit down. You're staying here. We wanted to come up with like a ranking list, a top 5 ranking list. The top 5 condiments that you would take with you to a desert island.
Yes. Well, like, sort of everyone.
Everyone.
This is
for
humanity.
Everyone, right? This is humanity's
list.
Desert island. And since ketchup is the first condiment that we've tackled, ketchup makes it onto the island no matter what.
It's obviously going straight on.
It's going straight on.
It's going to stay as well.
But there's no way, there's nothing I think that is going to kick ketchup out of the top 5 of all-time condiments. What beats ketchup?
Yeah. If anything. We can't answer this now.
No. This is for the mysteries of time to unravel.
It's only going to come through more thought and discussion, which is what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's it for episode 1. I think it's fairly clear that ketchup, if it had a mind... which it might do.
Sentient ketchup.
I think ketchup would feel fairly confident of holding on to its spot on the desert island, at least for the first 5 episodes.
Next time on the podcast, Tom and I get into a heated debate and break down the history of mayonnaise. Not nearly as excited than I was about the ketchup episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.